Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so today it would be considered normal to only have one wife, right? Yeah? Okay, well, back in the 1500s, it was very odd or scandalous to have more than one, and King Henry actually had 6. So today I will talk about Henry VIII's family, his multiple wives, and his lasting impacts upon England. So, his family, he was the second son of King Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. He had a lot of brothers and sisters, but only 2 of his sisters lived to adulthood. The Tudors were there was the War of the Roses, which was between the Lancasters and the Yorks, and the Tudors were the ultimate victors of this war. And when Henry VIII married Elizabeth of York, which is the White Rose, they combined their house symbols into this one, which is white at the center and then red. So, the Tudors were seen as to reconcile all these differences because there was infighting within their family. This is Henry VIII. Back when, in the 1500s, the second son would normally be destined for the church, because the first one would inherit, and then the second one would be for the church. And according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, published in 1910, which is a very credible source on many topics, he was destined for the church. He was very well educated and interested in politics and naval pursuits. And his older brother Arthur was actually betrothed to and married Catherine of Aragon. But sadly, Arthur died in Wales on their honeymoon, and according to Catherine of Aragon, they never consummated the marriage, so it was like it never happened. So his multiple wives, his first one was Catherine of Aragon, who originally married his older brother. They were happily married for many years, and they had one daughter, Mary, but King Henry needed a male heir to inherit the throne, so he began seeking an annulment. It's like a divorce, but through the Catholic Church. And he did this for about 6 years, and during that time, he started having an affair with Anne Boleyn. In 1553, Anne became pregnant, and he needed a divorce very quickly so that he could marry Anne. So to do this, he broke away from the Catholic Church and made his own church in England. Second wife was Anne Boleyn. She was originally his mistress. They got married in 1533 after she became pregnant. They had one daughter, Victoria. Henry began suspecting her of having an affair, and according to Eakins, who is a Tudor historian, in 2010 published that the queen was accused of incest with her brother as one of the many affairs that she was accused of. They were both found guilty, even though there was very little evidence to support this, and she was beheaded. His next wife was Jane Seymour. I found it interesting that they became betrothed only one day after Anne's execution. Henry saw her as his first true wife. And also according to Eakins in 2010, Henry indulged her in her every whim during her pregnancy with Prince Edward because he viewed her as his first true wife. And they did have a male heir, Edward, but she sadly died 2 weeks later, and Henry didn't remarry until 2 years after her death. His next wife, after 2 years, was Anne of Cleves. It was a political marriage, and almost immediately, Henry began seeking an annulment, which is a divorce. Since he was the head of the church in England, he divorced her and gave her land to live out the rest of her days with the title of the King's Sister. after a year of marriage, rumors began of an affair, and she was later executed. His last wife was Catherine Parr, and Henry died in January 1547, leaving her a widow. According to Joe Kinnan, who is also a Tudor historian, in 2006, Catherine Parr didn't have any romantic feelings towards Henry, but Henry was completely infatuated with her. And then his legacy. So Henry is very, very well known for his multiple wives, because it was very scandalous back then, just like it would be today. But he had a very lasting impact on England as well. So before he broke away from the Catholic Church, he defended the church, but then it changed when he couldn't produce a male heir and he needed a divorce. And through Parliament, he was appointed head of the church in England, and England would stay Protestant for the rest of Henry's reign. But then Queen Mary, who was his child with Catherine of Aragon, inherited the throne, and she reestablished Catholicism in England. And then Queen Victoria, her successor, reversed this, and England has been independent of Catholicism and the papacy ever since. And according to Pettigrew, who is a professor on the English Reformation, in 2011, by 1603, English people had come to esteem their church. So the English people really identified with Protestantism. So in conclusion, Henry was a very memorable historical figure because of his large family, which arose out of the War of the Roses, his many wives, which was very controversial, and his enduring legacy as the king who had a lot of wives, and also the king who changed the church in England. So people throughout time we can always relate back to people in our past, and it's really important to remember them. Thank you.
Awesome, great job.
Thank you.